Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. Glad to be back with you. We're going to continue reading in our book On the Banks of Plum Creek by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Now, if you remember yesterday, if you got to see yesterday's, Pa got home earlier than the girls were expecting. And when he got home, he asked Ma, which was his wife, Carolyn, what do we need in town? She said they didn't really need anything right away. And he said, okay, well, that's good. They think that it's going to be a very hard winter. And I think I better begin getting more firewood. That's what I'll work on for now. So that's what they were going to do. The name of this chapter is Keeping House. Now, in the daytimes, Pa was driving the wagon up and down Plum Creek and bringing load after load of logs to pile by the door. He cut down the old plum trees and the old willows and cottonwoods, leaving the new ones to grow. He hauled them and stacked them and chopped and split them into stove wood till he had a big wood pile. With his short-handled axe in his belt, his traps in his arm, and his gun against his shoulder, he walked far up Plum Creek, setting traps for muskrat and mink and otter and fox. One evening at supper, Pa said he'd found a beaver meadow, but he did not set any traps there because so few beavers were left. He had seen a fox and shot at it, but he missed. I'm all out of practice hunting, he said. It's a fine place we have here, but there isn't much game. Makes a fellow think of places out west where there are no schools for the children, Charles, said Ma. You're right, Carolyn. You usually are, Pa said. Listen to that wind. We'll have a storm tomorrow. But the next day was as mild as spring. The air was soft and warm, and the sun shone brightly. In the middle of the morning, Pa came to the house. Let's have an early dinner and take a walk to town this afternoon, he said to Ma. This is too nice a day for you to stay indoors. Time enough for that when winter comes. But the children, said Ma. We can't take Carrie on a walk so far. Shucks, Pa laughed at her. Mary and Laura are great big girls now. They can take care of Carrie for one afternoon. Of course we can, Ma, said Mary and Laura. Of course we can. They watched Pa and Ma starting gaily away. They were happy. Ma was so pretty in her brown and red Christmas shawl with her brown knit hood tied under her chin, and she stepped so quickly and looked up at Pa so merrily that Laura thought she looked like a little bird. Then Laura swept the floor while Mary cleared the table. Mary washed the dishes and Laura wiped them and put them in the cupboard. They put the red checkered cloth on the table. Now the whole long afternoon was before them, and they could do as they pleased. First, they decided to play school. Mary said she must be the teacher because she was older, and besides, she knew more. Laura knew that was true. So Mary was the teacher, and she liked it. But Laura soon got tired of that play. I know, Laura said. Let's both teach Carrie her letters. They sat Carrie on the bench and held the book before her, and both did their best. But Carrie did not like it. She would not learn the letters, so they had to stop that. Well, said Laura, let's play keeping house. We are keeping house, said Mary. What is the use of playing it? The house was empty and still, with Ma gone. Ma was so quiet and gentle that she never made any noise, but now the whole house was listening for her. Laura went outdoors for a while by herself, but she came back. The afternoon grew longer and longer. There was nothing at all to do. Even Jack walked up and down restlessly. He asked to go out, but when Laura opened the door, he would not go. He lay down and got up and walked around and around and around the room. He came to Laura and looked at her earnestly. "What is it, Jack?" Laura asked him. He stared hard at her, but she could not understand, and he almost howled. "Don't, Jack," Laura told him quickly. "You scared me." "Is it something outdoors?" Mary wondered. Laura ran out, but at the doorstep, Jack took hold of her dress and pulled her back. Outdoors was bitter cold. Laura shut the door. "Look," she said, "the sun shines dark. Are the grasshoppers coming back?" "Not in the wintertime, Goosey," said Mary. "Maybe it's rain." "Goosey yourself," Laura said. "It doesn't rain in the wintertime." "Well, snow then. What's the difference?" Mary was angry and so was Laura. They would have gone on quarreling, but suddenly there was no sunshine. They ran to look through the bedroom window. A dark cloud with fleecy white underside was rolling fast from the northwest. Laura and Mary looked out the front window. Surely it was time for Pa and Ma to come home, but they were nowhere in sight. Maybe it's a blizzard," Mary said. "Like Pa told us about?" said Laura. They looked at each other through the gray air. They were thinking of those children who froze stark stiff. "The woodbox is empty," said Laura. Mary grabbed her coat. "You can't," said Mary. "Ma told us to stay in the house if it stormed." Laura jerked away from Mary and said, "Besides, Jack won't let you." "We've got to bring wood in before the storm gets here," Laura told her. "Hurry." They could hear the strange sound in the wind, like a faraway screaming. They put on their shawls and pinned them under their chins. So this is kind of, I don't know if you can see it, kind of like a shawl. And they pinned it under their chins like this so it'd be tight. With their large shawl pins, they put on their mittens. Laura was ready first. She told Jack, "We've got to bring in wood, Jack." He seemed to understand. He went out with her and stayed close at her heels. The wind was colder than icicles. Laura ran to the woodpile, piled up a big armful of wood, and ran back with Jack behind her. She could not open the door while she held the wood. Mary opened it for her. Then they did not know what to do. The cloud was coming swiftly, and they must both bring in the wood before the storm got there. They could not open the door when their arms were full of wood. They could not leave the door open and let the cold come in. "I can open the door," said Carrie. "You can't," Mary said. "I can too," said Carrie. She reached up with both of her hands and turned the doorknob. She could do it. Carrie was big enough to open the door. Laura and Mary hurried fast, bringing in the wood. Carrie opened the door when they came to it and shut it behind them. Mary could carry larger armfuls, but Mary was quicker. They filled the wood box before it began to snow. The snow came suddenly with a whirling blast. It was a small, hard grains like sand. It stung Laura's face when it struck. When Carrie opened the door, it swirled into the house in a white cloud. Laura and Mary forgot that Ma had told them to stay in the house when it stormed. They forgot everything but bringing in wood. They ran frantically back and forth, bringing each time all the wood they could stagger under. "Oh, it's so heavy." They piled wood around the wood box and around the stove. I'm going to show you what they looked like here. Can you see that? They were bringing in lots and lots of wood. They piled it together against the wall. They made the piles higher and bigger. Bang, they banged the door. Then they ran to the woodpile. Clop, 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 they stacked the wood in their arms. They ran to the door. Bump, it went open, and bang, they back bumped it shut. Boop, like that. Lost my place. And thumpity thud thump, they flung the wood and ran back outdoors to the woodpile and pantedly came back. They were getting tired. They could hardly see the woodpile in the swirling whiteness. Snow was driven in among the wood. They could hardly see the house, and Jack was a dark blob hurrying beside them. The hard snow scoured their faces. It's like scrubbed it. Laura's arms ached and her chest panted. All the time she thought, "Oh, where's Pa? Where's Ma?" And she felt, "Hurry, hurry." Then she heard the wind screeching. The woodpile was gone. Mary took a few sticks and Laura took a few sticks, and there were no more. They ran to the door together, and Laura opened it, and Jack bounded in. Carrie was at the front window, clapping her hands and squealing. Laura dropped her sticks of wood and turned just in time to see Pa and Ma burst, running out of the whirling whiteness of the snow. Pa was holding Ma's hand and pulling her to run. They burst into the house and slammed the door and stood panting, covered in snow. No one said anything while Pa and Ma looked at Laura and Mary, who stood in their snowy shawls and mittens. At last Mary said in a small voice, "We did go out in the snow. Ma, we forgot." Laura's head bowed down and she said, "We didn't want to burn up the furniture, Pa, and freeze stark stiff." "Well, I'll be darned," said Pa, "if they didn't move that whole woodpile in. All the wood I cut in the last 2 weeks. There, piled in the house, was the whole woodpile. Melted snow was leaking out of it and spreading in puddles. A wet path went to the door where the snow lay unmelted. Then Pa's great laugh ran out, and Ma's gentle smile shone warm on Mary and Laura. They knew they were forgiven for disobeying, because they had been wise to bring in the wood, though perhaps not quite as much wood was needed. Sometime soon they would be old enough not to make any mistakes, and then they could always decide what to do. They would not have to obey Pa and Ma anymore. They bustled to take Ma's shawl and hood and brush the snow from them and hang them up to dry. Pa hurried to the stable to do the chores before the storm got any worse. Then, while Ma rested, they stacked the wood neatly as she told them, and they swept and mopped the floor. The house was neat and cozy again. The tea kettle hummed, and the fire shone brightly from the draughts above the stove hearth. Snow swooshed against the windows. Pa came in. "Here's the little milk I could get here with. The wind blew it up out of the pail. Carolyn, this is a terrible storm. I couldn't see an inch, and the wind comes from every direction, all at once. I thought I was on the path, but I couldn't see the house, and well, I just barely bumped into the corner. Another foot to the left, and I would have never got in." "Charles," Ma said. "Nothing to be scared of now," said Pa. "But if we hadn't run all the way from town and beat the storm here." Then his eyes twinkled. He rumpled Mary's hair, and he pulled Laura's ear. "I'm glad all this wood is in the house, too," he said. Well, that weather changed mighty fast, and sometimes weather can do that, change mighty fast. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope that if ever you're in a bad storm, your parents will be there if you're still living with your parents. And if not, that you do everything you can to be safe. I want to tell you, I love you. I really do. But more importantly, God loves you, and He always will. So it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead, praying blessings on you and yours, in your house and out of your house, in the day and the night. Whatever you do, keep dreaming. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And once you do, push the bell, and that will let you know, give you a notification every time I post a new video. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. Good night.